After 4 seasons in the trenches with the Broncos, Bengals, and Panthers, originally undrafted free agent Antoine Burton retired to pursue his true passion, developing bodies and minds and helping others. After owning his own businesses and operating his own top-level fitness and performance organization, he joined forces with the Professional Bull Riding Organization to help train top Western sports athletes. Burton is the PBR's Executive Director of Performance, responsible for operating the PBR Sports Performance Center for Western sports, based in Pueblo, Colorado. In addition to bull riders and rodeo athletes and prospects from nearly all professional sports leagues trained with Burton, attending his camps and using him as a daily resource. Outside of serving top-tier athletes, Burton still gets to do what he loves the most, helping his community and young people prepare for life. He does this by operating camps, working with students, and giving back at every turn. Please welcome Antoine Burton. Greg Camarillo started his collegiate football career as a walk-on punter and receiver at Stanford University, where he earned an engineering degree in 2005. He was then able to turn a minicamp tryout with the Chargers into an 8-year NFL career as a wide receiver with additional stops in Miami, Minnesota, and New Orleans. After hanging up the cleats, Greg earned a master's degree in educational leadership at San Diego State University and is currently the coordinator of student-athlete development at the University of San Diego, a role he has held for the last 5 years. He is also an on-air analyst for NBC7 San Diego, regularly appearing on Football Night in San Diego, and Sports Wrap OT. Please welcome Greg Camarillo. Ryan Mundy played 8 seasons in the NFL with the Giants, the Bears, and won a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2009. Currently, Mundy serves as the Managing Director of TechLeak Ventures, where he invests in venture capital and digital asset opportunities in the areas of sports, health and lifestyle, and the future of work. Additionally, Ryan is co-founder of SWZLE, an alternative plastic straw company, a member of the Alzheimer's Association National Board of Directors, has a role as an athlete advisory board member of the NFLPA's One Team Collective, heads up the Advisory Council for Illinois' Growth and Innovation Fund, is a founding member of Lift City Works Advisory Council, and is a founding board member of Chicago Blend. Ryan Mundy, ladies and gentlemen, is a busy man. Please welcome Ryan Mundy. Ranked number 2 all-time among Baylor's rushing leaders with 3,665 yards, Walter Abercrombie was an All-American and 3-time All-Conference football player between 1978 and 1981 in Waco. Abercrombie went on to an 8-year career in the NFL, playing with the Steelers and the Eagles. Currently, he sits as the Associate Athletic Director at Baylor University and Executive Director of the Baylor Bee Association. Prior to his current position at Baylor, Abercrombie served as the Director of Education and Special Projects at the American Football Coaches Association, where he worked alongside legendary coach and Executive Director Grant Teef. Please welcome Walter Abercrombie. At Michigan State University, Dr. Blair White earned a scholarship in 2009 and was voted by his teammates and coaches to receive the Biggie Munn Most Inspirational Player Award. While captaining the MSU football team his senior season, he received the President's Award for the Big Ten Conference Medal of Honor as the graduating male athlete with the greatest proficiency in athletics and scholastics. After completing 2 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts, and more than a decade later, Dr. White returned to Saginaw, Michigan. For the personal duty to contribute meaningfully to society and create value for people both in his community, he strives to create opportunities, initiatives, and outreach programs. In 2019, Dr. White achieved the honor of being Saginaw's #1 Invisalign doctor, and in 2020, White Orthodontics surpassed the previous year's goal to be included in the top 1% of Invisalign providers in North America. Please welcome Blair White. Franco Harris is known for his outstanding career in the National Football League, one so productive that it earned him a 1990 induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. During his years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Harris set the standard for NFL running backs: big, fast, and agile with explosive cutback ability. He established many team and league records, played in 9 Pro Bowls, and led the Steelers' charge to 4 Super Bowl victories, and was named MVP of Super Bowl IX. His immaculate reception in the final seconds of the 1972 AFC playoff game against the Oakland Raiders was voted the #1 greatest play in NFL history. Please welcome Franco Harris. A defensive lineman in the NFL for 10 years with the Raiders, Steelers, and Washington organizations, Nolan Harrison was as busy off the field as he was on, working as a full-time agent for Northwestern Mutual during his playing days and continuing in the financial services field into his post-career transition. Currently, Harrison sits as the Senior Director of the NFLPA Former Player Services Department, which services approximately 23,000 plus former NFL players across the country. And he was elected by his peers to serve on the Active Players Board of Player Reps, the Executive Committee, and the Former Players Board of Directors. He also helped lead the NFLPA core team that developed the Trust, a $22 million a year nonprofit dedicated to serving former players in their transition from the NFL. Please welcome our moderator for the session, Nolan Harrison.
Wow. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. And thank you, Mr. Jones, for that wonderful introduction. He's got the best voice of all time. Seriously, it is outstanding. We're so blessed to have him at the NFLPA. But I want to take this time to welcome you. I am Nolan Harrison. I'm the moderator for this. Hopefully will be an exciting and something that you guys are going to take some good nuggets away from. We're excited to bring, as you can see, a strong panel of former players that have done outstanding work off the field, post-football. So with that, I want to introduce everybody, get everybody on the screen, and let's get the session started. What's up, fellas?
Good.
How are we doing, Nolan?
Excellent, excellent. Thank you guys again for joining us. I think this is going to be really fun. One of the things that we got a chance to listen to through Mr. Jones doing all of your intros is a lot of people know our origin story when it comes to football, but a lot of people don't know our origin story when it comes to what we've done off the field. And I don't think that's celebrated nearly enough. So this is the reason why this panel exists. And I want to give all of you guys an opportunity to tell your business origin story, your post-football career origin story. So Franco, well, let's start off with you. What led you to what you are doing currently today?
Well, you know what? I really didn't have any plans or had anything set when I ended my last year in the NFL with played 12 years for the Seattle Seahawks, and my last year, part of a year with the 12 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and about half a year with Seattle Seahawks. So here I am now making this transition, and I remember sitting on my couch saying, "Franco, what are you going to do?" And then I remember saying, well, like, whatever you're going to do, you're not going to sit on this couch. And I got up off the couch and started looking for opportunities. And I got into a food distribution business. Now, like, if you don't mind if I, because I come from a different era, I'm the old man here, right? So, so back in the 70s, we didn't make a lot of money. Back in the 60s, all the players had jobs, right? And then they hoped that they had a job after their career in the same industry. Well, I've always wanted to be in business. So I started my own business. Now, I want to say a couple of things because I know guys deal with this. I had one buddy that went to look for a job. So he went in and was being interviewed. And the guy interviewing him said, "Oh, you don't need a job, do you?" And the ball player felt too embarrassed to say, "Yeah, I need a job." But he just felt too embarrassed. And so when I started my business, I had to do everything myself, right? Loaded trucks, unloaded trucks. And I finally hired a warehouse guy. And the first time the truck came with that warehouse guy, he looked at me because I was going to help him lift these boxes. He looked at me and said, "Franco, what are you doing?" So it's like, okay, you played football, then you're not supposed to do anything else. I remember one time I was delivering cases into a store, right? Drove an hour to deliver to a store. I was carrying these boxes in the store, and like this man tapped his wife and said, "Hey, I think that's Franco Harris." And she said, "No, that's not Franco. He wouldn't be carrying boxes in the store." And so people have this certain perception, and does that put pressure on ball players that, do they expect us to right away be on the same level in our transition that we are in football? In football, we're the best in the world. You make the NFL, you're the best in the world. And now people, do they think that transition is going to be parallel? That you're going to be the best in the world when you start over again? So, a lot of times the public and public opinion can put pressure on a ball player on how they feel about what they're doing and what they're doing. But now also it can be the ball player too, right? Because I remember one ball player was looking at a job, doing things, and just starting out, and that ball player said, "I'm not going to do that." The ball player felt he was too above that starting position because, I'm a ball player. So there were, many things, that ball players had to deal with. And also during that time, I had to deal with a lot of stuff where a lot of ball players were going broke, right? There were stories, ball players blowing their money, doing all sorts of things like that. And so there was that image out. And so during that time, there was a lot of, I guess, biases, to get over, hurdle that what people were thinking about athletes at that time. But you know what? I told myself, Franco, just like in football, that first day I had to learn how to get down in that stance. That first day I had to learn how to do this and do that. And I said, a lot of things I have to learn. I read a lot of magazines, read a lot of books on business. I told myself, Franco, try to get to feel. When I ran, I ran with feel, right? And make my moves with feel, but from knowledge. And I told myself, gain enough knowledge to where you know how to maneuver in the business world. And so I did a lot of reading, didn't know a lot of business people back then. There weren't business people that I could really talk to back then. Now, luckily, through the years, I've met him and have talked to a lot of them. But it was a learning experience. And I guess I want to say this, in the end, where start at the bottom, I delivered, put stuff in the back of my car, did things, drove hours, all that kind of stuff. And now it's way beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, like who would have thought? But that's, sorry it took me a long time to go over that stuff, but I just wanted to get that in.
No, that's awesome. And that's what we talked about, guys. I want you to take your time with these because these are important stories. So Greg, why don't we go to you next? What is your origin story in business?
Yeah, a little bit different. And shout out to the legends like Franco who paved the way for us. Very different now for current players because of guys like you, man. So thank you. So I majored in engineering in college and had a few internships where I sat in a cubicle and I looked at blueprints, and that wasn't for me. I like people. And so through my career in the NFL, I started exploring different avenues. I know I wanted to stick around sports. I'm sure most of you, everyone listening here still identifies as an athlete and likes to be around other athletes. I like connecting with people, and I like education systems. I like being on college campuses. So I've, used my time in the NFL to figure out where I was going with that. And it turns out it was going to be connecting with college student athletes. So I took advantage of the trust, took advantage of getting graduate school paid for by the NFLPA, got a master's degree in educational leadership, and have since been advising college student athletes at the University of San Diego.
Outstanding, outstanding. That's good stuff. Walter, you next.
Yeah, I think my transition, was kind of like a lot of guys. I didn't really know exactly what direction I was going to go into, and so I got out right away. And when I retired, I went into coaching because I needed to get a job. I didn't want to waste a whole lot of time trying to figure out if there's something on a higher level that I wanted. But I started teaching right after I retired because just a few months of not having any income, money was just draining out. I was paying bills, and I had a couple of places I was trying to maintain in various cities, and so I just started feeling like I had to have some income coming in. So I began teaching. And the first job I got was in the 7th and 8th grade. I was a reading and English teacher, and man, it took about 6 months before I realized that I better get out of that. There was it's nothing crazier than a 13-year-old boy, and I said, man, I was challenged every day, in those classes with those young kids, and I had just gotten out of the league, so I was really competitive, still in that competitive mode, physically. And so I said, I better get out of this before I catch a case beating on one of these kids. So I decided that I would better get into something else. And so I decided to go back to graduate school and become an administrator. And so I started out after graduate school in sort of an entry-level administrative position at the college level. And so here I find myself, nearly 30 years later, just kind of doing the work that I do in college administration. And so it's been a fun ride for me, but it's been a very humble ride for me because you go from being a pro athlete where you have this certain status in life, and everybody is on your jock and giving you accolades and so forth. And when you transition to the real world, for me, it was humbling because I had to start off at the bottom like everybody else. And it was in a different field. I had to learn the field. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't know everything. And so I had to learn it from a different, change my paradigm in the way of thinking. And so once I was able to do that, I was able to move pretty quickly. I mean, if you're an athlete, you deal with challenges and you deal with changes. You can adapt quickly. That's what we do as athletes. We're able to adjust and adapt. We have that training. We're very fortunate. And so I just had to make that apply in the professional world outside of athletics. And so once I figured that out, then my natural ability and my skills and what I brought to the table began to help me, advance through my profession.
Outstanding. Dr. White, I'm going to call you Dr. White because you've earned that, right? Too many people want to keep giving us our, stay in our lane and keep the football stuff on. I actually had somebody say, why did you put NBA at the end of your game? I'm like, listen, I earned that. All right. So Dr. White, you've earned that. I want you to tell your origin story next.
I appreciate it, Nolan. Like Greg and Walter, I also went back to school after I played. So I knew I wanted to go into the dental field. And I only played 2 years in 2010 and 11 with the Colts. But I had deferred dental school. So I had applied to dental school in college. And they said, you know what, take the time that you need or that you want to play. And then we'll work with you after that. So after those 2 years, I had a few back surgeries, and I decided I wanted to be able to play with my kids when I'm 45 in the backyard, and went back to dental school, and 4 years there and 2 years in orthodontic residency. And now, I acquired a dental orthodontic practice up here in Michigan. And that was in 2018. So a lot of school, a lot of at the mercy of the academic institution, like so many of us are later in life than maybe we want. But I'm really happy with it. Good lifestyle balance. But been practicing for 3 years now, and I think most of us former players have a natural inclination towards business, and that's why most of you are here. You kind of have an edge already. You know what you want to do, and you're taking those steps, which is awesome. But I kind of want to potentially parlay it into something other than just orthodontics, and there's a well-respected family in town, and a generation ago, my colleagues, this father, who's a cardiothoracic surgeon, that's how he started. But now he started a development group, and they own almost as much real estate as Consumers Energy. So, starting in one realm and kind of pivoting, but it's been a great journey for me. And I always wished I had gotten that pension, which is, I think, if it's still the same, 4 credited seasons. But unfortunately, I only played 2, and so it's on to the next thing. But loving it up here. I have 4 young kids, and it's been nice.
Outstanding. Yep. You can continue to leverage, right? You get one piece, you solidify it, and then you look for some options to grow and continue to get better. That's the athlete in us. That part is never going to change. Ryan, you're up, man.
How's it going, everybody? Good afternoon. Happy to be with you. My name is Ryan Mundy. I played 8 years in the NFL, 5 in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, 1 in New York with the Giants, and then 2 in Chicago with the Bears. And I'm currently stationed in Chicago. And much like everyone else on this call, we've dedicated our life to sport, trained our minds and our bodies. But the reality is, whether you play 8 years like myself, you play a few, you have a long career like Tom Brady, the reality is, and the common denominator is, we all stop playing one day. And we are all relatively young men at that point. And my experience with the transition was really rough, to be 100% honest with you. I was very fortunate and blessed to be surrounded by great teammates and great leaders and within great organizations. And I was fancying myself at the time as being like forward thinking, of identifying myself as more than an athlete, if you will. And so throughout my career, particularly towards like the middle and the back half, I started taking advantage of educational opportunities that were afforded by the NFL, at like Wharton, Notre Dame. I got my MBA while I was an active NFL athlete. And I was doing all these things to prepare not to become another statistic that we all know about, whether that's like bankruptcy, substance abuse, divorce, etc. But I quickly realized that I was doing a lot of work externally, but I wasn't doing the work internally. And when the rubber really met the road, and I had to get out there and start to figure out what life looked like beyond the game of football, I was really struggling figuring out, like, how do I apply my skill of tackling somebody? Like, how does that show up in the world? And dealt with bouts of anxiety, dealt with bouts of depression, general identity issues. And it led me, to really take a journey inward to figure out who I was and what value I was contributing to the world. And through that experience, I learned that we could do all these things externally, but if we're not right mentally and emotionally, that's where the real work needs to be done. Then it is still like tough sledding, and I'm living, breathing proof of that. And that experience ultimately propelled me into, my current activities right now. I was always active, hustling and busting in a startup ecosystem as an investor, and then I started another company. But where I sit right now is at founder and CEO of Alchemy Health. And our mission at Alchemy Health is to become the universal healthcare provider for the Black community, and that is rooted in mental health under a core belief that a healthy life starts with a healthy mind. And I reflected back on my experience because, I was, again, fortunate enough to play 8 years in the NFL and have resources available to me. But yet and still, I struggled, trying to find the appropriate care that I needed to figure out myself, no longer as Ryan Mundy, the athlete, but Ryan Mundy, the Black man, the husband, the father, et cetera. Like, how was I showing up? And through that experience and the experience of my family, just dealing with different chronic diseases and illnesses, I just, saw that there was a huge gap as it related to the health and well-being of the Black community. And it really wasn't, socioeconomic status is important. Again, very blessed and fortunate to have resources, but it wasn't a one-to-one apples to apples transition to saying, like, just because I have resources, I get the right care that I need. And I tell, the current guys right now, it's like, it goes fast. It goes really, really fast. I've almost been out of the NFL as long as I've been in the NFL, or I was in the NFL. And, time is undefeated, as they say. And it's about, maximizing your time and relationships while you're in the game, but ultimately realizing that it's not the end point, but it's a means to, and a platform that you need to be thinking about how to leverage moving forward. And I think this generation has a really, really unique opportunity to do that. I came up at a time where social media, it was around, but it was by no means what it is today. And so I've had the unique experience to see how it's evolved and how our guys have been able to leverage that to grow their presence off of the field. I still have some, thoughts around, like, how can we still, like, not be so in the moment, but starting to prepare and think about life after. But I do think the landscape is really interesting and opportunistic for our guys to really be advantageous and thoughtful, not only about how they show up in their activities off of the field while they're active, but then also how is that setting them up for life after the game as well.
Excellent. That's awesome, Ryan. All right, finally, Antoine, let's hear your origin story, bro.
First off, Ryan, man, what an amazing story. I'd love to link at some particular point because it definitely is that sort of conundrum where you don't necessarily want the sport to define you as a person, and you want to be able to matriculate into your next career or your next path and be able to utilize the NFL as a platform and not be kind of put in that box as an athlete and not being able to understand what us athletes go through in that transition out of football. Quite similar. I didn't have as, high as anxiety, but I definitely had depression a year out. I was definitely a journeyman within my career, had 3 with the Broncos, and then I kind of went on the merry-go-round a little bit. Coming out of my last year, I ended up going into the music business at that particular time, and it was a lot of snakes in that business, a lot of mistakes, and something that I thought that I was going to be good at because of my experience with the NFL, my experience with people, and at that time, my particular age, I felt like it was something that I wanted to go into because I know I wanted to be around people. That didn't work out, and it humbled me. It emptied my pockets. And I got into mentoring kids and training kids. My background, I was homeless for 3.5 years, drug addicted parent. So I wanted to say to myself, I wanted to share my experience and with the youth, the fact that I was able to make it to the highest level, the fact that I was able to, educate myself, get 2 degrees, an associate's in business, a bachelor's in psychology, share that and pass it forward because there was a lot of mistakes that I made in my career. And honestly, I just wasn't educated on a lot of things. And when I felt that I wanted to be a trainer, I thought that would be my platform. The truth of the matter is I never wanted to be a trainer either. I didn't want that to define me. I wanted to use it as a platform to be able to give that message. Ended up going through the NFL Trust. to get certified through Exos. And, I took my last little ends and started my own business, Next Level Performance, and started training kids, soccer moms, whatever it was. And honestly, I traveled the world a little bit to educate myself on being the best trainer I possibly can be. I knew that wasn't going to be my end game because I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I was going to be good at it because as athletes, we all want to be the best. And shortly after I started Next Level Performance, I started my own media company, 2017, where we did videography, photography, built apps for hotels, nightclubs. We actually went to the Super Bowl that was in Atlanta a few years back, did a few things for businesses out there. And I started my own NFL draft prep in 2017 as well. And at that particular time, PBR, Professional Bull Riders Association, just built this $13 million facility, 18,000 square feet, and happened to catch a docuseries that I did where I combined my NFL draft prep, Next Level Performance, and I put them, I rented out a mansion, put them in a house. I did something called, More Than Football, where I actually utilized my resources that I had to talk about real estate, to talk about your taxes, to talk about buying your first car, to talk about matriculating to that next level, because I wanted, again, to share my experience. And they thought it was a cool thing, brought me in for an interview, and they ended up buying Next Level Performance out and hired me as the executive director at the PBR Sport Performance Center. And I've been in this position for the last, I want to say, 2.5 years. So that's a little bit of my journey, and I don't want to be too long-winded, but being on this panel is definitely humbling. And if I can give any advice moving forward, or anybody listening, football doesn't have to define you, but man, do you gain so many tools, do you gain so many networks, and just be able to be open-minded, because you never know where you're going to end up. Never thought in a million years I'd be working for the PBR. So
that's outstanding. And if anybody's watching has any question at the end of all of that, why we wanted to get these guys on this panel and get them all together, such a diverse group, but you can see all of the similarities. You can see all of the things that drives all of us as athletes. It's all the same thing. It's reaching, being the best that we can be at what we're doing. It's trying to being in the moment, but then looking forward and what can I do to continue to reach? How can I continue to teach others to be where I am, and hopefully, learn more from the mistakes I've made in the past or the lessons that have helped me grow. All this stuff has been outstanding. So I appreciate all of you guys for sharing your story. We do have some questions, which is outstanding. So the first one is, and I'm going to throw this out to everybody, from Corey: what advice do you have for facing adversity in the business world? And of course, this is key because of the pandemic that we're coming out of. And I know a lot of guys in business have had some struggles. So I'll open this up to the group for a group discussion. What adversity have you faced in the last 24 months or just period?
Well, in business, you're always facing adversity, but really in life also. And I tell people that in football, we take a lot of hits, but we keep going. And, so facing adversity is a thing. Like I tell people, will it make you better or will it make you worse? Will you give up or will you push on? And so adversity is good a lot of times. But that's the point. Will it make you better or worse? That decision's up to each individual person.
It's a good answer. Thank you. Anyone else want to tackle that?
I'll dive in there.
Yeah, I can dive in.
This applies to business and really everything. Is what were your strengths as a football player? What allowed you to be successful in your football career? Because those same strengths are going to allow you to be successful in business or outside of business. So for me personally, it was connecting with people and preparation. I took a lot of pride in knowing all receiver spots because that bought me opportunity on the field. And then I just like connecting with people. I got relationships to this day with equipment managers, trainers, coaches. I got cut in San Diego and got to go to Miami simply because I had a good relationship with the coach in Miami. And I use that today. I use that every day, building those relationships, and then my preparation. I'm prepared for my job, and I connect with the people in my job. And I think you identify those strengths, whatever made you successful, and it's going to work at whatever you do next.
That's an awesome answer.
I think honestly, being self-aware, that's a big component of that particular transition. For me, I was a journeyman, and it allowed me to understand that things change quick for a lot of different people, and you got to be prepared for that opportunity. I tell a lot of my athletes, it's human nature to want a sure thing, but at the end of the day, the best in life is, you're going to get as an opportunity, and it's what you do with that opportunity. So the things that came to me were so just off the scale of things that I thought I would be doing, but I was prepared for that. And I understood, like, maybe my journey wasn't what I wanted it to be in the NFL, but it ultimately prepared me for these curveballs that came into my life, and being ready for it, prepared for it. Because you know how that is. You got to try out for this team. You got to fly into this team. You might be on practice squad, then you're on the active roster, then you're on this team. And it just allowed me to be able to, I'm game for whatever. I'm trying to win regardless. So that's how I feel like it helped me a little bit.
Definitely. And then Ryan, we'll finish up and we'll get some of these other questions.
Yeah, I would just say, again, really finding what allowed you to excel as on the field. For all of us, we had different skill sets, et cetera. And the challenge for me was really like, how do I pick that up and apply it into a new context? And you have to kind of strip it down and say, well, I'm no longer tackling somebody. I'm no longer catching a pass or throwing a ball, whatever it is. But you have to really double down and say, well, what allowed me to do that? Like, what are the skill sets internally that I developed? Grit, determination, focus, discipline, et cetera. People ask me, what is my superpower? I just say, man, I just have endurance. Like, I'm going to be here. You ain't going to outwork me. You ain't going to out-tough me. And like Franco said, we get knocked down, but we get back up. And so, I think there's a lot of transferable skills, if you will, but you have to take them out of the physical context and really think about them in a social, emotional manner, particularly after this year, because it was hard. I started my new business during the pandemic, and I'm out here raising money, I'm hiring, I'm doing a lot of different things. But, the internal skill set that I developed as an athlete are things that I'll continue to rely on, not only now, but moving forward.
Yep, breaking it down. I usually have something in the back of my head all the time. It's I've been through worse. And those of us that have played this sport at this level, we know we've been through worse. And so always kind of having that in the back of my mind when adversity hits me, that keeps me going forward. And I think we're all we have that foundation that we can spring off of, that grit, that resiliency, the knowledge that we can take those hits and we can get knocked down, but we can get back up and we can continue to be successful at a high level. Next question. Would you have asked as a rookie if you would have been asked as a rookie what your job after the NFL would be, would you have guessed that you would be doing what you're doing now? And I can say no for me, so.
Absolutely not. No way.
Short answer, no.
Like if someone would have told me, Franco, one day you'll be selling super donuts, I'm saying, what are you talking about? But it's amazing where life takes us. I mean, journey is just incredible, and and as I said earlier, the transition is not going to be parallel. NFL, we're the best in the world, but we started when we were kids, and so once there's that transition, no, we're not going to be the best at it right away. Some of you went back to get your education. Some of us started a business from the ground up. But we strive to be at that level again, where we want to be the best in what class or what we're doing.
When I came out of the league, I thought I was going to have some big time television job or announcer job, and so I never will forget. And I interviewed for a couple of different jobs in television. And I was turned down, and just coming out of the league, I was my ego was crushed because I actually thought that I could walk right into a place, apply for a job here in Texas, and get it, with no problem whatsoever. No experience, just because I was a pro athlete. And I met reality right in those two experiences. And so I decided that I was going to go back and get some more training, get some more education, and that would be the last time someone would turn me away because I didn't have experience or education that I needed to get things done. And so that was a motivator for me. It was a humbling experience, but it caused me to focus and get back to the things that made me a good athlete, and that was hard work, preparation, and just sheer determination. And so once I figured that out and I had that experience, then I was able to set my path forward.
That's good stuff. Next question, and I'm going to direct this because I want to make sure I get everybody on. So Dr. White, I'm going to have you take this one. Honestly, what is better, your greatest success on the field or your greatest success in business?
Well, I'm amongst, elite company with you guys. My successes on the field pale in comparison to some of the things that you guys have done. But just going back on utilizing the platforms that we have, I kind of looked at it initially as, well, I don't want to be manipulative and say, I'm the former football player, NFLer, and Saginaw, where I'm from, is a smaller city, and so people naturally look up to you. But utilizing that in an ambitious way to advance the community, to advance society, as you touched on, Ryan, it's not something to be to frown upon. You have to use that to advance, like I said, society and help people out. And so it's been difficult for me to not only market that I'm an NFL football player, but use it in the proper light. And I think a lot of times transitioning, we have the stigma of, you hear all about CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and, former football player bashing his head against and we don't maybe have as many brain cells as some of the other people out there. But if you can, as Greg mentioned, stay prepared, kind of prepare the documents you need, whether you're making a pitch or you're trying to raise money or whatever it is, being organized and in kind of the optimization from that perspective can really change, a banker's perspective on you or a leader in the community's perspective on you. And we have to use that. We've been blessed with this opportunity, and it would be irresponsible not to use it.
Well, I try to tell guys, don't get caught in that trap, because that's mostly what the public uses. The public wants to compare you to your football career and everything that you do. And if you don't reach that level, does that mean you're a failure? Said the NFL, how many guys are in the NFL? You're the best in the world. If you're not the best in the world in your next thing, no, you're not a failure. You guys are doing a lot. Hearing these stories today, great guys. You inspired me. I'm the old man in this, right? And I'm inspired, by hearing these stories. So when people try to, hey, listen, that was one part of our life, and that was great. But now this other part, and both of them have their own definition to find themselves. But don't get caught in that trap that what is best, because that's what other people use. Don't trap yourself in that.
Well, that's a great point, Franco. Yeah, we define our own, our own future, our own present, our own destiny. We define that. We have fans, obviously, but they don't get to define who we are and what we do, just the same way as we as athletes don't define what everybody else does.
But they will try to do that.
Absolutely. So being grounded within ourselves, being secure in what got us to be successful off the field, and that success looks different for everyone because, like Franco said, everybody's success is different. If you feel like you are successful, that's the most important thing, and then continuing to develop from there. Last question. What are the best resources that you've found that have helped you get to where you are today?
I guess I'll make it pretty simple. Like-minded people, good people. You have that, and hard workers. You can do a lot.
Building.
I just want to hit on a quick. sorry to cut you off. I had no idea the resources that the NFLPA had, and the trust especially. I had a strength coach in Indianapolis that said, hey, you ought to check the NFL Trust Scholarship out. Lo and behold, it was like a $20,000 scholarship for it was astronomical. So there are a lot of resources that I think a lot of us former players, maybe even active players, don't have any idea. Ryan, you mentioned that with the NFL business management and entrepreneurial programs that they have in your MBA, like there's so many things out there that can really help advance a career. So I just felt like that was important for me to share, because I'm indebted to the trust of the NFLPA forever for that, you know?
Absolutely. Well, guys, I'm getting the wrap up. I hate this because we could do this for hours. There's so much great content, but I appreciate you guys coming on. But continue to share your stories, and we're going to continue to do the same thing. Let everybody know the resources that are available to us, because we don't know what we don't know. And let's continue to try to to build each other up and uplift each other. The younger guys or older guys, this is a great brotherhood. This is a strong fraternity. I'm blessed to be in it with you guys, and I thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nolan.